Hey, Thrand here, and I'm back with a reply to a reply to a reply. Heck, I don't even know how many replies that this ended up in until we got to this point. But I had people say I didn't give it my all, that I was throwing puny blows, and I think the whole point that a lot of people forgot is we were staying with the Viking Age theme. I don't think that half swording was a common thing during the Viking Age. The shield, the skjolder, with the umbo on it here, that was a protection for your hand. Your hand stayed behind that. A lot of times gloves were not worn. A lot of times the armor wasn't worn. The shield was pretty much everything at that time period. Even later century, we see this with bucklers. I mean, you see bucklers and people are using them to protect their hand with. So we can't guarantee that hand protection was worn. We even see manuals where people grab the blade to wrench it out of the other person's grasp. As long as the blade's not moving and you get a strong grip on it, you can do so without cutting yourself. You can half sword without cutting yourself. I mean, a lot of people use that as an example. Oh, European swords were dull. You can hold it by the edge and hit people with it. No, they were not dull, and yes, you can hold it by the edge with a naked hand and use it. But like in the last video, I was a lot more careful. I was doing this as a Viking theme. Your average Viking warrior who probably didn't have gloves or hand protection, how would he do, and would he consider it worth doing? I didn't determine that it was worth doing, but we got a nice dent in the shield. Okay? This time, I'm coming back. As you know how I am, if somebody says that I did give something my all, or something upsets me, like we had a head once where we put a super strong artery in the neck and the dagger wasn't working properly, I cut an entire head off with a dagger. All right, I've had about enough of you, lad. I'm going to take your frickin' head off. Ah! 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 Freedom! I think it works well. No, I honestly did, because I got that flustered. So I could see a man in battle, I wouldn't care about my hands getting wounded. If my hands got slight cuts on them, but I finished my opponent and didn't die in the process, yes, you most certainly can half sword without gloves. But today I'm going to be using gloves. We're going to say, what if the Viking, the Scandinavian warrior, the Vikinger, what if he had his now bending mitts, his needle binding mitts on, kind of like my hat here made out of needle binding, could have been some wool. Mitts were really easy to make, and they came from colder climates. They could have been using those. They could have had linen gloves, just like under the later century gauntlets. And yes, the people who said wear gloves are 100% correct. It is an armored technique. Every time you see half swording with a Langsvert like this, or a Viking Sword, I guess in Old Norse, you're going to see gloves because they're underneath the gauntlets. And that's how you protect your hand when you're half swording, not to get hit in the hand while holding the sword like a pole arm or a poleaxe. And using the quillions much like a poleaxe or I guess a spike on the back of a warhammer or something to injure the opponent and daze him, at the very least daze him by hitting him in the head. But anyway, today we're going to try this. I'm going to give it everything I got, my all, and we'll see what this sword can do, even though I can't verify that they would have had gauntlets like these back in the day at the time. But let's see what happens. Gloves on, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I went through the actual hole that's already there. Haha. That is impressive. That is impressive. Oh. Oh. Nice dents. Dents are way more extreme, and you can see the actual damage to the metal as it hit. But if you also notice, sometimes it glanced off, and these glances very easily could have injured my hand badly if I were not wearing gloves. Oh, straight through the shield. Oh. 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 Well, it's certainly causing way more damage to the center boss. We see it's bent up tremendously. I even went through the hole, increasing the size of it, ripping it open, where it already had a hole for a center spike, or a nail. Very impressive. This is a car door, and it's 1 millimeter thick. So approximately 19 gauge, 20 gauge in that area. So this is a truck door, so it's quite tough compared to some vehicles. So I'm assuming it's on the thicker side, around 19 gauge or so. Let's go ahead and see what happens if I try it with the gloves on. Oh! We got a hole through the car door. I don't think that's possible on the 16 gauge, but it literally went through the car door. You can see it right here. Let's try that again. Oh! I don't know if that's what people wanted to see, but on plate armor, do I think it would do this? Not unless somebody was wearing something this thin. I don't think anybody be wearing unhardened 1 millimeter steel. But I mean, it's possible in some areas, I guess, or certain types of armor that might be like that, but it actually punched completely through it. And with the gloves, no problem. Razor sharp blade, no fear. I'm not cut or hurt in any kind of way. The gloves are scratched up a little bit from earlier, especially when I glanced off the center boss, the shape. So that does concern me that if you were doing this with a naked hand against plate armor and something went wrong, you could get cut pretty badly if you weren't wearing your linen gloves or leather gloves underneath your gauntlets.
We don't need this door no more, right?
And that was a half sorting test on the car door. It was able to go through. Not as well as the throws, though. It still got stopped by the door quite a bit. So that leads me to believe that, yes, the throwing had way more force, considering the blade almost went all the way in at times, up to, I'd say, almost the widest part. Anyway, I hope this is what you all wanted. I hope you've enjoyed our little episode. And as always, farewell.